What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different and something that I think's a little bit fun, because now the season has finished, not that much to talk about. Maybe we can start looking into next season at some point. I thought today it would be fun for me to give you guys my true opinion on every single club in the Premier League and the EFL. Of course, on this channel, we're always pretty level-headed. We don't try and get too caught up in our like or dislike for certain teams, but I thought it would be fun today for you guys to see my true opinion on some of the clubs in the Football League and in the Premier League, and this is how we're going to do it. So the tier list we've got set up, obviously Boro are in their own tier. They're my club. They're the club I will love forever, despite the trauma they put me through. I've also got one for like. These are clubs that I really like to see do well, and maybe in another world, had I not supported and grew up in Middlesbrough and supported my local team, I might have supported them. I've got clubs I'm fond of, so maybe it's a club that have done something really good, maybe it's something good off the pitch, or they've, had a really good underdog story on the pitch. A club you, I guess, respect more than like. I've got no opinion, which speaks for itself. These are clubs I think absolutely nothing for. Dislike and hate with a passion. They will be some very interesting categories. So let's get through the 92 clubs and see where they all fare in my tier list. Starting off, Tottenham are the first club, and I'm going to put fond of. I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for Tottenham. I've always liked their colours, I've always liked their brand, I've always liked their kits, and yeah, I've always just liked Tottenham as a football club. I think they've got a really nice new ground, and I always like to see Tottenham do well. Can't explain it. I think it's mostly down to just the brand, the colours, the kits. I think it's really, really smart. So yeah, I've always been really fond of Tottenham. Oh, we've already got a club I hate. Sunderland. Obviously, North East football. Us fans up here, I think, are the most passionate and die-hard football fans you will get. And although, yeah, I will admit as a Boro fan, Newcastle and Sunderland have a different level of hatred towards one another, there's also a degree of hatred between us and Sunderland, especially since we've clashed a lot more in recent times, because we've been in the Championship together a lot more. Obviously, when I was younger, growing up in the early 2000s, it was Boro and Newcastle, mostly, with Sunderland in the Championship, but in recent years our rivalry with Sunderland's definitely gone up a notch, and although they always say we're not really a derby, we're absolutely a derby. We're not a derby when Boro win, but we're always a derby when Sunderland win. Weird that, innit? Stockport, I don't have an opinion on them. Nice crest though. Same for Stevenage. In fact, they have a very similar crest. They're identical. What? They look exactly the same. Like they've been made by the same designer. But yeah, apart from having two nice crests, I have no opinions towards Stevenage either. Leeds United. We have another club in the hate category. I don't know if it's a universal thing to hate Leeds United. I feel like it probably is. Yeah, do not like Leeds. Maybe all clubs feel like this, and I'm sort of saying this from a Boro fan's perspective, and it is more normal than I maybe think, but I feel like every time we play Leeds, there is a lot of added spice to it. There is some form of a rivalry there with Leeds that I think is stronger than your average rivalry, and although it's not a derby by any means, there's always some spice when Boro and Leeds get together, and I think over the years, we've had so many players that I think have moved from their club to ours. I mean, Viduka, Hasselbank, Woodgate. There's so many. I mean, they're just a few I've named off the top of my head. The amount of players that we've sort of shared as football clubs is huge. So our history is a little intertwined, I would say. And especially in recent years, there's been some really big battles in terms of us both trying to get to the Premier League. And plus, their fans are... Well, I don't want to speak for all Leeds fans, but their fans can be a bunch of wankers. There you go. As a Boro fan, yeah, I really hate Leeds. We all hate Leeds scum. Everton, don't have an opinion of Everton. Sheffield Wednesday, I am fond of, actually. I do like Sheffield Wednesday. I think mostly it's because I think having played them this season and in past seasons, their fan base is fantastic. They always bring so many fans. They back their team incredibly well. And I think added to my general sort of respect for Wednesday as a club and as a fan base, I think this season, seeing how they've managed to stay up from what seemed like an impossible situation where they were guaranteed relegation, to see how they've bounced back and how they've managed to steer themselves clear and survive for another season. I think they had so much to the Championship, so I'm really happy they've stayed up. and I'm quite fond of them. Salford are an interesting one because they could go in the fond of or dislike category. Fond of, I like the brand and I like the class of 92, but dislike because on the same sort of side of the coin, or the different side of the same coin, I don't like how they've sort of been propelled through the tiers just because they've got more money than everyone else. But I feel like they've certainly hit a bit of a ceiling, and League 2 is proving to be a bit of a struggle for them. So I'm going to put them in the middle, but I can definitely see why there's a case of why some people might like them and some people might not. Oxford, I like Oxford. I'm going to put them in the like category. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, I love their kit. I love their logo. I just love Oxford's brand. I'm a designer, so I really sort of get into the look and feel of a club and their kits and everything, and I think Oxford have got a really, really nice brand and a really nice kit. It's great to see them get into the Championship this season as well. I'm looking forward to come up against them next year. And as a little personal thing, I did have an FM save with them. Maybe it was FM23, where I took them over after they just got promoted into the Championship on a budget of only 500k, and I kept them up and got them in mid-table. So I got really I felt really connected to a lot of their players who are obviously in the squad now. So I have a little bit of relatability to Oxford, but yeah, I can't explain why. They're just a club I kind of like. Northampton, no opinion. Huddersfield, no opinion. Shrewsbury, no opinion, don't like the crest. Bromley are an interesting one. They've just got promoted. Now, I don't have an opinion on Bromley, but good for them, getting into the Football League this season through the playoffs. That's awesome. Brighton, I am fond of, mostly because of the way they do things. Obviously, there was a bit of a rivalry between us and Brighton back in the day. We obviously got promoted after that dramatic final day draw that got us up above them on goal difference. But I think everyone should universally respect Brighton in terms of how they somehow make a profit in a world where football is so financially tough and clubs are making losses and are in so much debt, and yet Brighton recorded a record profit last year. The way they run the club, the way they recycle players and sell them on and buy new players to develop, they have the ultimate model, a bit like Brentford. And I think you just can't not be fond of and respect what they're doing and how they're growing as a club. Gillingham, no opinion. Wickham, I did like when they were in the Championship, but I don't really have an opinion of them now. I am fond of Plymouth. I have a soft spot for Plymouth. I can't explain what it is. Again, I love their kit. Their kit's amazing. And maybe there's a bit of an underdog story to Plymouth, and their story and how they come so close to dropping out the Football League, have worked their way up. And again, a bit like Wednesday, have managed to stay in the Championship this season when it looked like things might get a bit spicy. So yeah, again, the look and feel and the story behind the club makes me quite fond of Plymouth. Same with Ipswich. I've never had anything against Ipswich, but this season especially, seeing how they've bounced from League 1 up into the Premier League is unbelievable. It's a story you can't help but sort of like and respect, unless you're a Norwich fan, of course. And I'm a little bit gutted for them that it seems like Kieran McKenna might be poached away to a bigger club like possibly Chelsea. That could really, really do them harm getting promoted. It could be the worst time for them to lose him. I really hope they don't, and that could really, hit a crucial blow in their survival hopes. But I think for what they've done recently, again, Portman Road's a great ground, great fan base too, so I'm quite fond of Ipswich and what they've done, especially this season. Peterborough, no opinion on them. Notts County, I guess you can respect the fact they're a really old club, got quite a nice kit, but no real opinion on them either. Same for Accrington and Stanley. Portsmouth I like though. I would go as far as to say I like Portsmouth as a club. I really liked them growing up, when obviously they were in the Premier League with us throughout the mid-2000s. We had some great battles with them. I remember watching them as a kid when they won was it the FA Cup they won? Which at the time was just such an unbelievable achievement. And again, another club who've dropped down through to, due to real hardship. And to see them get back to the Championship's a great story. And if there was a neutral club I'd like to see get their way back to the Premier League that wasn't Boro, one of them clubs probably would be Portsmouth. Bristol Rovers, no opinion. Wrexham, I dislike Wrexham, and it's nothing against the club, but I think recently in recent times, this whole fairy tale around Wrexham, it's a little bit annoying. I'm not going to lie. They've been overtaken by 2 Hollywood stars. They've got loads of money, I get that. But I feel like the media, they do this sometimes in all sports with like upcoming darts players or whoever the newest the youngest, coolest thing coming through is. The media will attach themselves to a person as a sportsman or a football club and just kiss their ass to eternity, and it gets really irritating. And I think as much as Wrexham's story is it's a good one, I guess, for how they've sort of catapulted themselves through the divisions. I just get a little bit annoyed by how much the media sort of lick their backside a little bit. So that's the hype, I guess, around Wrexham and all that. I think, and all the noise has made me just dislike them as a club. It's nothing against the club. I just think the way the media goes on about them really does my head in. Newcastle. Now, if I was to create a tier for clubs I hate more than anything, it's Newcastle. I hate Newcastle more than any other club on planet Earth. I was born and bred and brought up to hate them, and I forever will. As I said earlier, we grew up in the early 2000s when it was Boro and Newcastle in the Premier League, and never have I wished for a team to lose, never have I wished for a team to be relegated, and never have I wished for such terrible, unthinkable things to happen to a football club as I do Newcastle. Whenever they play Sunderland in a Tyne-Wear derby, I'm always supporting Sunderland. That's how much I hate Newcastle. They are the club I hate the most in the entire world, and I'm going to leave it there. Norwich, don't really have an opinion on Norwich, although we've had some pretty good battles over the years. Same for Blackburn. Maybe a likeable club in the 90s when they obviously won the Premier League, but that was before my time. Swindon, the same. West Brom, yeah, the same. Again, we've had some good clashes, but don't have an opinion of them. Barnsley, I'm going to put Barnsley in the dislike column. This is more of a banterish thing, but every time Barnsley get promoted to the Championship, we are shite against them. We always lose. We never get anything from Oakwell. I dread going there, and every time I think of Barnsley, I just think of Boro heading to Oakwell and somehow finding a way to be shit and lose. So yeah, nothing against the club Barnsley, but as a Boro fan, I don't like you guys. Please stay in League One. Palace, I guess I'm fond of them in a way. They're a bit of a boring club, though they don't really do anything, so I'm going to leave them in no opinion. Colchester, the same, no opinion. Same for Stoke, really. I do find it hilarious how they somehow keep managing to finish 16th every season, even though they spend a fortune. I don't know where they get the money from. Bradford, the same. Doncaster, probably the same. Derby. I dislike Derby. My dislike for them's probably mellowed a bit in recent years, but there was a period when the whole Steve Gibson, Mel Morris thing was going on, where Gibson was obviously trying to get Derby punished for breaking financial and profitability rules. Maybe this was 2 or 3 years ago. And obviously at the time, Derby were on the brink of getting relegated and going into administration, and a lot of Derby fans obviously thought Steve Gibson was kicking them while they were down, whereas Steve Gibson wasn't giving a toss about the timing. He thought Derby had prevented Boro from getting into the playoffs by beating us to 6th when we finished 7th, and they did it by breaking financial rules. So Gibson took them to court, got them fined or whatever. I don't know the exact financial details and how they were punished, but I think it came at a time where Derby was struggling so much off the pitch, which was all their own doing, by the way. They acted like Steve Gibson was the man who caused Derby's entire downfall when Mel Morris had done all of the damage prior. The timing of it just made Steve Gibson look like someone who was, kicking them while they were down, when in fact he was just protecting his own football club. And since then, Boro and Derby have been at loggerheads. Whenever we play each other, there is so much extra added spice. And obviously last time they were up before they got relegated, we beat them 4-1 at the Riverside, I think. And there's not many games when we're at home who I really get into, who I really want us to beat, because I dislike the opposition. Leeds are one, Derby now are definitely another, and I'm looking forward for that rivalry to be renewed next season now they're promoted back to the Championship. Preston, don't have an opinion really. They're another club who just linger in the middle of the Championship, don't really do anything. Grimsby the same. I mean, what even happens at Grimsby? I've always wondered, what happens in Grimsby? Does anything ever happen in or at Grimsby? Who knows? Hull are a team I've come to dislike, more so their fans. I don't know, every time I've encountered a Hull City fan, they seem incredibly self-entitled. I don't know what it is. Hull fans always seem like they have this assumption that they're, I don't know, a bigger club than they are, when they've not won anything. So I just don't get the attitude of some Hull fans sometimes when they, come across like they are some huge club who deserve to be this and deserve to have that. And I'm not going to lie, seeing them not get the playoffs this season, despite all the money and loans they spent, was a little bit amusing, I'm not going to lie. So I think in recent years, again, maybe because Boro and Hull have been fighting for the same thing, the rivalry's intensified a little bit, but I've come across a lot of Hull fans who I've sort of sat back and went, who the hell do you think you are, really? That's caused me to dislike them a little bit. Maybe more so because we are Championship rivals, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of Hull. Port Vale, no opinion. Millwall, I actually have no opinion of. I know a lot of clubs instantly sort of don't like Millwall and have an instant reaction to them. I don't have anything to really say about Millwall. We've got the 2 Manchester clubs up next, and I'm going to put Man United in the dislike column. And this is, again, a bit like Wrexham. down to the media. I think the narrative surrounding Manchester United is so flipping exhausting. When they win, and they've got pundits on the TV, and I like Gary Neville, I like Roy Keane, but when they win, it's almost like Man United are back. That's it. They're here now. They're back to their best. They're going to win the title. They're going to win this. They're going to do that. But when Man United lose, it's the worst thing ever. The manager should be sacked. They're all a disgrace. And it's suddenly the worst Man United team in years. And all you see on TalkSport and Sky Sports, it's obviously, no matter what happens every weekend, it's always the narrative around Man United. And it's always one extreme or the other. They're absolutely incredible because they've won a match, or they're absolutely shite because they've lost a match. There just never seems to be any level-headed sort of analysis around Man United. It's always just one extreme to the other, and it's so exhausting. So yeah, that has made me dislike Man United. The narrative around them is exhausting. Man City, I don't have an opinion on. Maybe this is a bit like Salford. I see why people like them and respect them for their dominance. I do see how it kind of makes the Premier League boring, and I might make a video on that in terms of Man City. But I don't really get the dislike for them either. I know obviously they've bought the league, as some people say, and obviously they've been helped massively by, you know, getting really rich owners. But the way they've done it, the way they've built over time, I think maybe allows you to be quite fond of how they've done it and what they've achieved, and simply how much of an effective winning machine they are. But I think balancing them two out, I don't really have an opinion of Man City. I can sort of give or take them. Luton would have been in the dislike column. After last season, we had a real heated rivalry with Luton because we were fighting for promotion. But I think at the same time, I like Rob Edwards and I like an underdog, and it would have been cool to see Luton stay in the Premier League. I think once they got promoted, now a rivalry with them ended, and whatever heat we had, the competitive heat simmered once they got promoted, and I was actually rooting for them to stay up because it would have been something different, and it would have meant that the three who went up didn't come straight back down, which they sadly have. So that sort of just got me back to being level-headed with Luton. I don't really think anything of them now, but when we inevitably fight each other for promotion next season, that might change. Fulham, no opinion of really. West Ham, I didn't like when we were in the Premier League because we had some nasty clashes with some of their fans, but I don't really have an opinion now. Arsenal are going into the like category. I really like Arsenal. They would be the team I'd probably have supported had I not been from Boro. I adored Thierry Henry as a kid. He was my favourite footballer who didn't play for Boro, and it was around that time, 2003-04, where I really started to watch and enjoy football as a kid, and Arsenal were the team around that time who I'd always play on when I was on FIFA. I'd always sign Henry no matter where I went, which club I was at. I've always loved Arsenal for that, and it's a shame they're not the same winning machine they were, and I've been rooting for them to topple City and win the Premier League in the last few years. I hope they get there, but they are, for me, if I don't have a second club because I just don't think anyone should, but if it was to be a second club, it would be Arsenal. They were my favourite second side as a kid growing up, and I still really, really like them now. Sheffield United, don't like. We had a lot of run-ins with Sheffield United at times, and there was a lot of back and forth after last season, or the season before, when obviously they got automatically promoted over us. There was a bit of heat between some of the footballers and what was said and stuff, and plus they've got Chris Wilder, who I don't like and I think's a massive prick. So yeah, for how he left Boro and how he was trying to like manufacture a move elsewhere at the time, I've lost so much respect for him.
You don't need to ask me.
I was going to ask you liberally.
Okay. You don't need to ask me.
So it's
you don't need to ask
nothing
me.
that interests you then.
You don't need to ask me, mate.
Okay.
Swansea, no opinion really. Same for Barnet. Tranmere, same for Fleetwood as well. Burnley, no opinion of now. We really had a pretty heated rivalry with Burnley back in the day. Again, it was when we were both fighting to get out the Championship, and Sean Dyche would always try and throw shade at Boro for spending money, and there was loads of like back and forth around that. It's mellowed over the years with Burnley. I think the fact they played a really nice style of football under Company made them slightly more likeable and watchable. Be interesting to see what happens now they're going to be relegated without him because he's off to Bayern Munich. So I have no opinion of Burnley now, but that would have been different a few years ago. Liverpool, I'm fond of Liverpool. I don't get the hate that a lot of people throw towards Liverpool. I think Anfield's a great ground. I think they're a great fan base. Again, when I was younger, watching football around the mid-2000s, I always loved the Liverpool side, seeing them in Europe and stuff like that. They had players I liked again, so although they're not quite up there with Arsenal, Liverpool are a club I've always just been fond of, and I've always sort of liked seeing them get back to the top end of the Premier League. I like seeing them win the Premier League, so yeah, They get a lot of hate from certain corners of football, but I have a little tiny soft spot for Liverpool. Southampton, no real opinion of them. Same for Reading. I used to really like Chelsea as a kid as well. They were another Premier League club I liked playing as on FIFA, and I like Lampard, I like Drogba. Again, they had some of my favourite players, but over the years, I've sort of just learnt to not really feel anything towards Chelsea, although I do see why some people probably don't like Chelsea. Lincoln, hate their crest, but don't have an opinion on them as a football club. Same for Watford. Blackpool, I used to be fond of Blackpool, really like their kit. Orange is my favourite colour, so I think they've got a great kit. And I remember when they got promoted to the Premier League, beyond all odds in 2010. I remember watching that playoff final and, yeah, really getting into their story. And I followed them closely in the Premier League the following season. And they were doing so well until they just collapsed in the second half of the season. So I used to have a real soft spot for Blackpool, probably not as much now. Brentford fall into the same category as Brighton. I mean, even when we were in the same league as Brentford, I always sort of had quite a bit of respect for them as a club, and like Brighton, exactly like Brighton, how they've managed to sustain themselves in the Premier League and build, and their whole model, I think, is just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, again, unless you're a direct rival, I don't see how any neutral can't be fond of Brentford as a club and what they've achieved. Leyton Orient, no opinion. Leicester, probably no opinion. Burton, the same, don't really have much of an opinion on them. Wigan, always been fond of Wigan. I don't know what it is about Wigan. Again, when I was younger, I remember seeing them win, was it the FA Cup or the League Cup? Can't remember which. They always seemed like a bit of an underdog club punching above their weight in the Premier League, and they had some really iconic sort of streets won't forget players. And every time I recall us being up against Wigan in the Championship, they've always seemed to have points deductions or something, and always seemed to be really fighting against the odds despite all the stuff and crap they've been through over the years. So again, a bit of an underdog story for Wigan, and I've always sort of had a soft spot for them, how they've always sort of done well despite points deductions and everything like that, and what they achieved back in the day in the Premier League was awesome. So again, back from when I was younger, a club I really remember sort of liking and enjoying watching, and it stuck with me, is Wigan. QPR, no opinion of them. Same for Crawley. Walsall, no opinion. Birmingham, because they won a trophy back in the day, I sort of liked them, but no real opinion of them now. Wolves, the same, although they've got a cracking crest. Newport County, no. Forest, no real opinion on them, although I think they're a great club with great fans and bring a lot to the Premier League and have great history. I don't like MK Dons. It's all around the whole Wimbledon story for me. I just don't like where MK Dons sort of come from. That whole narrative around them being a fake club. I don't think any team's truly a fake club, or a franchise club, or whatever you want to call it, but I've never felt comfortable with what happened with Wimbledon and how they relocated and created their own club and sort of kept the Dons and everything. They just don't feel legit to me, MK Dons. They're a strange club. Don't know. Never really liked them for that. Carlisle, don't have an opinion of, although I did see on Wikipedia once that Carlisle consider Boro as one of their closest rivals. I don't know if that's a one-way thing, but I've never gave a shit about Carlisle, so I don't know if they care about us. If there's a Carlisle fan in the comments, let me know. Exeter, no opinion, although we had a good game against them in the Cup early this season. Same for Crewe. Boro, no opinion of them, although they had a good season. Coventry, dislike. Our rivalry with Coventry has really ramped up over recent seasons. Obviously, it all come from last season with the playoffs that we come out the wrong side of. Plus the whole Carrick versus Robins. Robins can't, Carrick can't get one over Robins, which is true to be fair. Rivalry between us and Coventry has really heated up online between fans. And there is that hilarious sort of joke that Coventry fans create a rivalry with absolutely anyone. That is kind of hilariously true. Coventry over the recent seasons, I think the competitive rivalry has really sort of grown in that respect. I would be lying if I said as a Boro fan I haven't grown a bit of a dislike for Coventry. If it wasn't for our competitive rivalry, I'd probably really like them and their story and where they've come from, getting back to the leagues, and I like Robins as a coach, but they're a direct rival of us, and I feel like we're on very close parallels at the minute, and we're going to collide once again soon. So it's a competitive rivalry with Coventry, although you do get some fans online who do come across like a bunch of wankers. Chesterfield, no opinion. They've obviously just got promoted back into the Football League. Same with Charlton. Harrogate are a team I like. This is simply because they're not a million miles away from me. Harrogate's a lovely place, and their crest is unbelievable. It's gorgeous, as is their kit. So I think Harrogate have one of the best looking kits, brands, and crests in all of football. Cardiff, no opinion of. Cambridge, the same. Bristol City, I'm tempted to put in dislike just because we always get nothing from Ashton Gate, but I'll put them in no opinion. Bolton are a team I really like. I don't know what it is. I've always liked Bolton. I remember when we played them back in the League Cup final. They had some great players, even Campo, JJ Okocha. I just remember back in the day Bolton being such a cool club. I don't know what it is. I just remember them being a club like us, maybe punching above our weight a bit in the Premier League. And again, how they've dropped down the leagues and are fighting their way back up. I just have really good memories of Bolton, you know, going up against them, watching them play, seeing how they got on in Europe, just their overall story, and they seem like they've got good fans too, so yeah, Bolton are another club I've always kind of liked. Mansfield, no opinion. Rotherham, very close to dislike again, because we always do terrible. Their place a bit like Barnsley, but because they've been relegated now, I guess I can just sort of be happy that we're not going to drop points to them next season. They're going to go in no opinion. Morecambe as well. What happens at Morecambe? No idea. Villa, a team I'm fond of. In fact, I like Villa. I'll go as far as like. Boro have got a really good relationship with Villa, which helps. In recent years, we've worked together really well on certain signings and stuff like that. But equally, I love Villa Park. I think it's a fantastic ground. I love going there as an away supporter, and I just have respect for their fan base. You know, they really, really back the team. It's a great set of fans, and to see them doing well and fighting at the top end of the Premier League up against the big boys is awesome. Wimbledon, it would make sense for me to say I'm fond of them. Yeah, I am fond of Wimbledon, actually. Just, again, because of what happened to them being replaced by MK Dons and how they've had to literally get their way back from the brink, at the very bottom of the pyramid. Obviously, they were once a Premier League team. What happened to them was terrible. They've been replaced by a club that just simply isn't the same, even though it technically is. So to see the actual AFC Wimbledon get back up to where MK Dons are and compete with them and everything, it's just a great story, and it's a kind of a bit of a fuck you to MK Dons, I guess. So it's great to see Wimbledon and how they've got back up to, you know, the EFL, and hopefully they can continue to slowly get back to where they were all them decades ago. And finally, Bournemouth, no opinion. Although I would say I was quite fond of Bournemouth a few seasons ago when Eddie Howe got them into the Premier League, because although they were a rival of ours, I think, again, seeing a club go from the bottom of League 2 up to where they are is good, and they're a very well-run club. Not too far out of the same sort of bracket as Brentford and Brighton, you could say, but don't have as much of an opinion on Bournemouth as that. But that's my tier list, guys. That's what I think of every single club in the Premier League and the EFL. Who I like, who I'm fond of, who I don't have an opinion of, who I dislike, and who I hate. I will leave a link to the poll, although it probably won't work because the tier list has Boro at the top of it, so maybe that won't work. But if you want to create your own tier, let me know, or just list the list of clubs that you like and dislike. Let me know who you support, and then if there's any strange clubs you just have a soft spot for, or any strange clubs you just really, really dislike. Because obviously we all have rivalries. Sunderland and Newcastle will always be the two I dislike the most, but then there's other clubs just through other means that I've come to dislike, like Derby and Man United and Coventry. So comment below the team who you support, who you like, who you dislike. It'd be interesting to see if there's any crazy combinations in there. But other than that, thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. A little bit different, a little bit fun. If you've enjoyed it, let me know in the comment section below by also smashing that like button. And until next time, guys, I'll see you all in the next one.